Okay. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. So we're going to kind of go ahead and continue on with our next narration for the Sunday Faithful series. So this hadith is like really short. Y'all can probably just write this down, honestly, and we'll kind of expand on it as we go. All right, so this hadith comes from the books of Sahih Muslim and Jami' at-Tirmidhi. So it's a very authentic hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where he says, "Man dhalla ala khayrin falahu mithlu ajrin fa'ilihi." So one who directs another towards good, for him or her will be a similar reward for their actions. Okay, so one, I'll repeat that. One who directs another or others towards good, for he or she, or for him or her, will be a similar reward for their actions. Okay. Now, this is interesting because it opens up a little bit of like possibility for us, right? Where questions arise. Oh, can I just like tell people to do good things and like, I'll get the same reward as doing it myself, right? So if I'm just kind of chilling, telling people to pray and I just don't pray, is that cool? I'm like, that sounds pretty sweet, right? Like I'll just tell people to wake up for Fajr, but I'm just going to chill at 6:30 in the morning. Is that the same kind of thing that the Prophet was talking about? So there's like a lot of questions, right, to be asked. So I'm going to break it down for like in 3 ways for you guys, okay? So number 1, we're going to talk about the importance of like guidance only being from Allah in Islam, okay? Like guidance only being from Allah. Like the ultimate like idea of being guided is up to God himself, okay? That's number 1. Number 2 is the meaning of directing or guiding other people as human beings. Like, what does that mean? Like, how do you guide another person as a human being? Like, how do you teach people about things that are good and kind of like tell them to stay away from things that are not so great? And the last thing is the value of advice itself being even more beautiful than some people's actions, right? Because some people may, do certain things like deeds and, whatnot, but that deed may be really, really low quality because of the intention behind it. So we're going to kind of mix all these and kind of learn from it together, okay? So the first thing that we're going to be talking about, first and foremost, is the guidance of Allah himself. Okay, so I want you guys to think about for a second. Has anyone ever been in a situation where they felt like something was completely in God's hands? Anyone? Anyone have thoughts about that? Anyone willing to share something where you just felt something was completely in the hands of Allah? Yes. What's your name?
Matic.
Matic, go for it.
When I was driving, when I got my permit, I had basically no experience, and my dad was like, "You're driving home," and I drove home, and I was like, say all I do as I was seeing like it's in Allah's hands.
Did you make it home?
Yeah, I made it home.
Oh, okay, alhamdulillah. Good. Okay, alhamdulillah. So you didn't trust your own skill set.
I know, like I played Mario Kart, I know how to drive.
He played Mario Kart
to some extent.
Okay.
But like, I can't control what's around me. So.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Y'all ever feel that like y'all are driving now, right? Like, do y'all ever feel that like driving on the road is completely like Qadr Allah at this point in your life? Because really, there was like an article that somebody kind of wrote where they were talking about how when you step on into like a car and you drive on like a highway, any road or whatever, you are putting so much faith in the people around you. It's uncanny, right? How many of y'all have ever flown in your life, like airplanes? You are putting so much faith in that one weird talking dude. It's like it's 73 degrees outside. Like, can you just talk normally, please? But you're trusting him so much with your life that it's like unbelievable if you think about it because you have zero control over it. Yeah, very good. All right, anyone else want to share something where they felt like something was completely in Allah's hands and you had like nothing you could do about it? Yeah, Sophia?
She was right next to me, and I'm doing the parent talk course. So when I'm driving, I don't know nothing. Okay.
Yeah, I feel you.
And my mom's yelling at me. I'm getting so confused, and I'm like, "You got this.
You
got this," and she's yelling.
Yeah.
It's scary because I'm like, your parents yell at you while you're driving, you mess up.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
Like, Mom, I cannot drive.
I agree with that 100%. Yeah. So you felt like you were completely like just Yeah. Okay. Very good. All right, Sophia, go ahead.
I was going out to eat with my friend, and she wanted like a boy to come, and so in that moment I was like, Allah, please don't let this guy come. Like I don't know what he can do. I don't know what he looks like. I don't know what he acts like. He's older than both of us. He's also a man, so like he's stronger than us. So just whatever you do, like, whatever happens, please just like make because and the story of Yusuf, right? He made a dua that like wasn't the best dua because he made it like a choice. But I was like, Allah, just do whatever is best for us so that we can stay. And that guys gone out of our lives.
Alhamdulillah. Very good. Very, very good. All right, go for it.
Like this was like a couple of years, like 2 years ago, a year ago. And like I only drove in like in parking lots. Like, like legally I should not even I was not even like on a permit. But like my sister, I was with her at work and she was like super tired, so she passed out. So I was like, okay, well I need to get us home. And it was like 10. I never drove on a road and like she'd like drive me home. I'm like, what? Like,
yeah.
I'm like 12,
yeah. That's
so
intense.
I had to drive her, and like it was like really hard, and I didn't know because she couldn't check the lanes or anything, so I was just like doing my best, and then I was going really slow, and like people were honking at me, and I'm like, okay, we'll have to go faster, and after did that, like it was all okay, but it was also like late at night, and it was my first time ever driving like on a road, and it was like really scary, but
yeah, subhanAllah. That's I'll share one with you guys. So you guys obviously like now at this point know that we're expecting this kid inshallah in May. This journey has been one of the biggest lessons in just not being able to control anything in your life, honestly. Like I'm a person who tries to do as much homework as I can about certain things that I get myself into. Like if I'm like cooking a meal the next day, I'll be like watching like, I don't know, dude, some ridiculous amount of YouTube videos on how like this recipe works and that recipe doesn't work and this works and that doesn't work. And when it comes to like a child, right? When it comes to like having a baby, like we and my wife and I are very much trying to kind of make sure that like we're doing research and making sure that we're asking the doctors the right questions and whatnot. And every time we ask the doctor questions, they're just like, yeah, just do what you got to do. I'm like, you're a medical professional. Tell me your opinion on this, right? And she's like, no, you just can't do anything about that right now. And I remember that was like the answer to the majority of the questions we asked. You just can't do anything about that right now. And so like the way that this child will like come around is completely up to Allah, and we have nothing to do with it. Like you have very minimal kind of input in it. Like obviously like making sure that like you're keeping yourself safe and like not like flying after a certain time of the the pregnancy and whatnot. But the general kind of well-being of the child is completely up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And one of the most scariest stories I've ever heard is when like mothers, they give birth and like the umbilical cord gets wrapped around the child's neck, and there's nothing you can do to like change that scenario. When like a woman gives birth, there's nothing you can do to kind of change that. It's just the way that the child came out. And so that's why doctors have such like serious, like it's not just like a medical profession, it's almost like therapy to a certain degree, because you can be like, oh my god, oh the kid, like like you have to be very calm, and the best doctors are the ones that are very calm. And actually the best doctors are the ones that don't even tell the mom about it. They're like, oh yeah, you're doing really good, and they're like maneuvering themselves around making sure the kid's like coming out free. Like that's one of the, like, but the reality is it goes back to this idea that you have such little control over certain situations in your life, which teaches you a little bit about this idea that Allah has so much to do with your life without you even knowing about it, right? Like you are planning to leave roots in about like the next 35 45 minutes or whatever, and your plan is to go home, or your plan is to go and go hang out with your friends or whatever your plan is. Like what if there's like a variable in your life today that you just didn't see coming? Y'all ever felt that before? Like an event happened in your life that you didn't see coming, that just changed like that week for you, or that month for you, or that year for you possibly. And nowhere in your plans did you have that lined up, but because that happened, your life changed for a certain period of time. And this is truly like the lesson in Allah having so much to do with your life without you even knowing about it. And so when we're talking about just guidance in general, like guidance, right? Hidayah. That's what the word guidance is in Arabic, hidayah. And you'll find it in different parts of the Quran. Allah talks about Surah Al-Baqarah as one of them, Alif Lam Mim, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ, right? That verse talks about like the guidance of Allah being given to you for people who are like, at least open to guidance. ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ. Allah talks about the perfection of the Quran, that it's a guidance for people who are just conscious of a God, right? They know a God exists, right? And this is why I always tell, especially young Muslims, like religion will always be there for you. Allah will always be there for you unless you slam the door shut. Unless you slam the door shut. Even if you as a person are struggling with religion, just leave the door cracked a little bit. Because what does even that crack of the door represent? What does it represent, Yael? Your faith, but what exactly? Yes?
Awareness of God existing.
Yeah, like, you know what? I want to believe in it. I want it to be a part of my life. I want it to be a thing. That's what it represents. But when you close the door completely and you lock it, you're just like, man, like I don't even, it's done for me, right? So that hidayah, that guidance is always going to be there for you. Just leave that door cracked a little bit, right? And Allah talks about this, right? And Allah even talks about this as like a favor from Him to you. He says, وَوَجَدَكَ ضَالًا فَهَدَى, right? That we found you lost and we guided you. وَوَجَدَكَ عَائِلًا فَأَغْنَى, and we found you poor, like without any resources, and we gave you sustenance. Like, have you ever thought about that in your life? And this is why, like, when people talk about like privilege and like, just fortunate things in your life, as they are, you should really think about it. You should really think about it. And unfortunately, life has a weird way of warping you into thinking that what you have now is the norm, even if it's not. Have y'all ever thought about this? Like the way that you live your life, is it the norm of the way that everyone around the world lives their life? I don't know if it is, man. I don't know if it is. I don't know if getting into an air-conditioned car or a heated car in the winter, driving myself down 30 minutes or 35 minutes down to like a space like this where you have fresh air to breathe, you have food literally made for you, you have water bottles for whenever you get thirsty. I don't know if that is the norm. I don't know. When I see videos of children starving, children dying, children being oppressed in like militant nations, like a person your age, 17, 18, they're going through that stuff. I don't know if what we're going through is the norm. And then Allah reminds you, وَوَجَدَكَ ضَالًا فَهَدَى, and we found you lost and we guided you. We gave you a family. We gave you a home. Do you ever think about that in your life? And unfortunately, the more used to something that human beings get, the more forgetful we get of those things. Y'all ever catch your privilege ever, like in your life before? You're like, oh man, like we're having chicken 3 times in a row. Like, what? Like, dude, people don't eat sometimes 3 days in a row. You're complaining about eating the same meat 3 times in a row? That's your problem? Like, oh man, we've just been drinking water for the past week. Can't we just get some like drinks? Like when you catch yourself saying things like that, you're like, whoa, like that's wild, right? Yeah, you had something. You were about to say something. Yeah, exactly. Taking things for granted, right? And a lot of the surah that I quoted, وَوَجَدَكَ ضَالًا فَهَدَى وَوَجَدَكَ عَائِلًا فَأَغْنَى. Allah says, فَأَمَّا الْيَتِيمَ فَلَا تَقْهَرْ. Like the orphan, right? The orphan. So give like glad tidings to the orphan and be kind to the orphan. Why? Because you even having something simple as parents is not a guarantee, right? And this is why like people, I know it's very customary of like this time in your life to kind of be very like tense with your parents, and there's obviously reasons to that. There's misunderstandings and there's different kind of tensions in the home at times and stuff like that, but you should never once in your life allow yourself to say like, man, I wish I had different parents. Like I wish, and by the way, there are people who say stuff like that. And of course, if you're going through a very serious situation that's actually like, mentally taxing and emotionally taxing, that's different. But don't allow your common annoyances to let you utter things like, I wish I had different parents. we take one small thing and we just kind of blow it up to this like really large extent. It's like I say the same thing to parents. Like, don't look at your kid just because like they don't listen to you one time and say, man, I wish I had different kids. What? Like, you have a healthy daughter, man. You have a daughter who, mashallah, has made it to the age of 17 without any serious health predicaments. You have a son who's like, mashallah, man, I know the brains are not really there, but he'll get there one day, but he'll be fine, right? We'll get this together. Like, no, but like seriously though, it's really incredible. My mom's birthday was like a week or so ago, and I remember my mom's like a Facebook mom. My God, and she's probably watching this right now. Actually, it's really awkward. My mom watches like all the live streams at Roots sometimes, so she's always like the first commenter. She's like, "Who is this like RZ Khan? Who's this person who's like a huge fan of Roots?" I'm like, "This is my mom. Don't worry about it." But my mom's birthday was like a week ago, and she posted this post about like her kids, and like how she has seen her kids like grow from like babies to like toddlers to children to teenagers and now like adults with their own children. And like for her, it's like very like mind-boggling that this actually happened, right? That like your appreciation for Allah's guidance has resulted in you being a facilitator of this amazing lineage in your family, right? Like imagine, I mean, and you guys, subhanAllah, think about this. And I know this is kind of trippy, but I want you guys to think about this. You are one small fraction in what is human history time, right? Y'all ever think about that? Like, you guys are witnessing, I don't know, when you guys born, like 2005, right? 2003, 2004, and you'll witness till like 2070, 2080. But after that, your time is over. It's the next generation's turn now. Think about the people who were born in the early 1900s. Their time was 1910 to like 2000. They didn't even see COVID-19. They never knew the common kind of like culture of today's day and age. They didn't know any of that stuff. They never witnessed Donald Trump becoming president. They probably didn't witness Barack Obama becoming president. You know what I'm saying? So when you think about your life in the retrospect of human history, you think to yourself, my God, like Allah's guidance is so incredible. Like he allowed me to experience these 70 years in this vast vacuum of time. It's incredible, right? So the first thing that we understand is that guidance comes from Allah himself. And there's actually a verse in the Quran that I want you guys to kind of like just remember right now, okay? And I'll tell you guys, there's a really incredible story, by the way. Because one of the Prophet's uncles, anyone know the Prophet's uncle that never became Muslim? Who was the Prophet's uncle that never became Muslim? What was his name? Not Abu Lahab. Abu Lahab was a bad one. Real bad dude. Abu Talib, very good. Abu Lahab, man, that dude was bad news. Abu Lahab was so bad that Allah had to reveal an entire surah about him. That's when you know you're bad. But Abu Talib was, obviously, he never became Muslim, but he was a good guy. He was a good guy, okay? And on Abu Talib's deathbed, one of the things that the Prophet ﷺ found very, very troubling for him was, like, he was a prophet, obviously, right? When people that loved him, that he loved, wouldn't like believe in what he was telling them, right? So like Abu Talib being like he was an idol worshiper, right? But he was also like a protector of the Prophet. He was in this weird limbo where like Abu Talib was, he wasn't a Muslim, but anyone who tried to take shots at the Prophet ﷺ, he would basically like defend the Prophet. Right? He's like, I don't believe in what you believe in, but I'm not going to let anyone mess with you. That was the type of person he was. Okay. And so he grew very close to his nephew, very close to his nephew. There's some very cute stories about Abu Talib, by the way, like because obviously his sympathy to the Prophet, that the Prophet never knew his father. He basically became the Prophet's father figure. And so sometimes Abu Talib had a bunch of sons. Y'all know this, right? Abu Talib had a bunch of sons. Anyone know two of his sons? You also know their names. What are two of his sons' names? Abu Talib, two sons. Ali ibn Abi Talib, right? Ali ibn Abi Talib and Ja'far ibn Abi Talib, right? These were two of his sons. So what he would do, and these were the Prophet's cousins. And if y'all anyone have a family of boys, it's like just pure testosterone. No one? Okay, you do, right? Okay. So when you're in a family of boys, you understand that food is a hot commodity. It's eat or be eaten, bro. Like you either get to that lunch table or Allahu Alam, bro. I might not see you till tomorrow, right? The food's gone. So Abu Talib went through that same thing, where his son, he had a bunch of sons, and if you know, teenage boys eat as though they're pregnant women. right? It's like they're carrying extra weight on them because they're carrying life inside of them, right? And that life is in the form of a baby. It's in the form of this teenage testosterone that they have, okay? And Abu Talib would notice that all of his sons, whenever he would lay out food, they would like run over to the food table, just run, dart over the food table. And it was like every man for themselves, every man for themselves. And he would always notice his nephew, Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, would always be in the very back, waiting for everyone to finish, because that's just the type of person he was. He wasn't like everybody else. He was a little bit more well-mannered. He was a little bit more conscious about other people. He would always wait in the back. Abu Talib, noticing this, eventually started to do something very unique. Every time he would make a meal for his boys, he would make an extra plate for his nephew, because he knows his nephew didn't have the heart to go and eat while other people haven't eaten yet. So he would actually save his own meal to eat with his nephew. Can you imagine that? Like this older man who has so much respect for a nephew who was at that time like 10, 11 maybe. He would eat with his 11-year-old nephew because he had so much respect for him. And so when Abu Talib was on the deathbed, the Prophet ﷺ knew that it was now time, right? Like it's either now or never. You say La ilaha illallah now, or like, man, like it's gonna really take a big toll on me. So he goes to Abu Talib's home, okay, and he sees around him are like all of these Qurayshi like big dogs, right? You got like Abu Lahab, Abu Jahl, you got like Ikrimah bin Abi Jahl, all these different people, right? They're like all there. And all of them are like, yo, you better not convert now. You better not convert right now. Like, because you lived an entire life honoring your ancestors. Now you're gonna say La ilaha illallah. Think about like the shame that would bring upon your family. And the Prophet was like, oh my God. Like, and he's going up to his uncle. He's like, uncle, I love you. I love you so much. Just say that you believe in Allah. Just say it, and I will just do the rest for you. Because there is actually a narration that says that as long as you have La ilaha illallah upon your tongue, that the Prophet can intercede for you on the day of judgment. Like, he'll come on your behalf and he'll be like, no. I know this dude never prayed. He sucks. I get it, right? Like he had his own problems. I know this girl had her own problems, but you know what? He still believed in you, Allah. She still believed in you, Allah. If you value me, and obviously Allah, this is the Prophet, right? If there's any one person that Allah will take their word, it's him. So just say La ilaha illallah. I will come in on behalf of you on the day of judgment, and I will argue and I will fight for you. And so he told his uncle, just say it, please. And then his uncle died with the final words. He says, Ala deen Abdul Muttalib. I die upon the religion of my father, who was Abdul Muttalib, who was an idolater. And so when the Prophet ﷺ witnessed this, it sank his heart. His heart sank when his uncle had those final words. And he was just absolutely just distraught. He was beside himself. He was like, man, I can't believe I can guide people, or I can teach people like Zayd ibn Harith, who was like a former slave of Khadija. He can accept Islam because he believes in what I'm saying, but I can't even guide my own uncle. And then Allah sent down a verse, very beautiful verse. Allah sends down a verse, and I'll say it in Arabic and I'll translate for you guys. It's a very important life lesson here. The verse is, Innaka la tahdiman ahbabta. Okay? Innaka la tahdiman ahbabta. You cannot always guide those who you love. وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ يَهْدِي مَن يَشَاءُ. Rather, Allah guides those who He wills. It was a huge lesson for the Prophet ﷺ. You cannot always guide or direct the people that you love. Rather, Allah is the one that guides the people who He wills. مَن يَشَاءُ. Okay? And this in and of itself proves my second point of this hadith, which is this hadith. It says, "Man dalla ala khairin falahu mithlu ajrin fa'ilihi." That one who directs another towards good, they will have a similar reward. You are a mere director, a facilitator. You're not a guider. You understand what I'm saying here? The ultimate guide is Allah. You're a facilitator. You are merely put in this position to just help people. The ultimate one who makes the decision of whether to guide someone or not is Allah Himself. Okay? So understand that very, very fundamental principle, okay? And this is why, like, that word dalla, yudillu, right? This means just directing somebody. It means to direct someone, not to change their heart. It means just to like basically open the door and just tell them, hey, that's the way. Now, whether that person accepts it or not, that's not up to you. And this is why a lot of Muslims, when they hit anyone ever have like a person in their life hit like religious wokeness, they're like, I am a Muslim now, right? Like, so everyone else has to be the same level of Muslim as me, right? What do you listen to? Cardi B? Astaghfirullah. Listen to Surah Al-Baqarah, right? I get it, Cardi B is horrible. But like the example I'm trying to make here is that some people expect that whenever you are on this level of the deen, that everyone else should be at the same level. That's not true. And you know what a very good way to practice and implement this rule is? Remember a time where you weren't here yet. Remember a time when you were not here yet. You appreciate Islam now? Remember a time when you were like, yeah, I don't really care about it. How would you have wanted to be approached at that time? Did you want a person to approach you and say, astaghfirullah, brother is wearing pink. Does he not know pink is a feminine color? I'm just kidding. Like, I'm not speaking on you, say. Like, you know, like just stupid things. Like the things don't even make any sense, right? And usually what happens is when people are like overzealous about the religion, they will say something stupid eventually. When like, you know, that they're not understanding people's circumstances. They just say things because they feel better than other people, right? Oh my God, don't you look at her, she's wearing socks. Why? What are you talking about? You know what I'm saying? Like this is where people who are like overzealous about something and they feel like everyone should be the same as them, they'll start making other people just not want to be near them at all. You know what I'm saying? Like the religious person in the room, this is the last person you want to run into, right? The last person you want to run into. The literally like the dude, like when they walk into a room, everyone's like, you know? And I think to myself, I wonder what people's reaction was when the Prophet used to walk into a room. Because when he used to walk into a room, people got excited. People were like, oh, he's here, he's here. Everyone gather around, let's talk to him. Now, when people who try to emulate him walk into a room, they're like, shh, he's here, right? She's here, quiet down. Because everyone's too afraid of people who are quote unquote religious now, right? So, dalla, right? It means to just direct people. That it's you are just, you know, this facilitator of good. And by the way, this is important. This is also important. A lot of people think, and this is also another thing that we need to avoid as Muslims, is thinking that if I am not like, a person who practices the deen too much in action, then I shouldn't tell anybody else anything anyway. Like I shouldn't like basically preach to anybody anyway. This is actually a shaitani trait as well. Because in Islam, you know what's really interesting is, and we talked about this hadith before, that if you see a wrong in front of you, you correct it with your hands. And if you can't correct it with your hands, you correct it with your tongue. And if you can't correct it with your tongue, you feel uneasy about it in your heart. And that's the lowest level of faith. So as a Muslim, we know that it's actually not okay just to see things happening around you that's wrong and just letting it happen. You know, and we talked about this in the Surah Qasas class earlier today online, that Prophet Musa was such an advocate of goodness that his level of dedication to correcting wrong was so much that he accidentally killed a man while trying to do so. Like, think about it, right? Like literally, he accidentally killed a man trying to do so. He was trying to break up a fight between an Egyptian man and a Bani Israeli. And because his passion for justice was so strong that when he saw another person oppressing another person, he merely intended to just push this person off. But he was so strong that he accidentally killed this dude. And the next day, the same Bani Israeli man was like, hey, I need your help again, right? And Musa was like, no, dude, I know you, bro. You're weird, right? Like, you made me kill a dude yesterday. But even then, he stepped forward to help this man again the next day. Why? Because he couldn't just idly stand by and see things happen that were wrong. Like, as a Muslim, we need to understand that we should not be okay with wrong going on around us. Okay? And I'll tell you something. This might kind of open y'all's minds a little bit. You know, people who are like, oh yeah, you know, I'm just like a mere bystander of this world, right? Like, you know, wrong happens all the time. What can I do about it? You know, what am I going to do about it? Those people have unfortunately taken themselves out of the equation where they forget that they are a part of this world. Y'all ever heard the phrase, if you're not a part of the solution, you're a part of the problem? Y'all ever heard that before? Y'all believe in that? Dude, I believe in that sometimes, man. I believe in that. Obviously, context given, but I believe in that sometimes. That if you're just gonna sit back and complain about like, oh, this thing is wrong, that thing is wrong, this thing is bad, this thing is bad. What are you doing? What are you doing to help it? What are you doing to solve it? What are you doing to better it? You're gonna complain about your family 24/7 and not do anything about it? You're gonna be like, oh yeah, my brother, him, lost cause, right? Why don't you go up to him and be like, hey man, I really care about you, bro. I want to sit down and talk to you for a second. Like, at least try. That's what this hadith is saying. At least try. Okay? And then the last part of this hadith, and we'll end with this inshallah today, is that the Prophet ﷺ, he says, at the very end, he says, فَلَهُ مِثْلُ أَجْرٍ فَاعِلِهِ. That for that person who merely like just directs others towards good, they will have a similar reward. Okay? Now, how do we break that down? Number one, never underestimate the quality of a deed. Okay? Someone's action may look good, but your guidance of their action may actually be of a higher quality. For example, I'll give you guys a very understandable example. Okay? So Safiya, right? Safiya tells me, hey, it's Dhuhr time. It's Dhuhr time. You should probably pray, right? I want you to pray. It's a good thing to pray 5 times a day. So go out and pray Dhuhr. I'm like, oh, fine, Safiya. I go and I'm just like praying. I'm trying to do it to get it over with, right? And I'm praying. I'm only praying because I know Safiya is watching me. So the quality of that deed is kind of like, is down here. But Safiya's advice to pray was like up here. You understand what I'm saying? So there are moments when even advice can be of a higher quality than the deed itself. You understand? It's kind of deep, yo, right? You think about that? Like because the way that you think about something is a big part. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, right? So when you think about it and a person advises you towards something, your mother, for example, your mother tells you, hey, I want you to really be good to your sister. I want you to be really good to your sister. Be kind to her. Be nice to her. You're out here like goofing around, bro. You don't even a nice brother at all whatsoever. You're out here like, and the only time you're nice to your sister is when your mom's watching you, right? In that case, your mom's advice and love for you is higher than your actual deed of being nice to your sister whenever your mom's looking. So sometimes the guidance towards a deed can be even more powerful than the deed itself. Okay? That's number one. Number two, there will be certain times where you'll be in a position to advise someone towards good where you will not be able to do the good yourself. Give me an example. Let's put our thinking caps on. Give me an example of a time where you're in a position to guide someone towards good, but you realistically cannot do that good yourself. Amin, and I'll go to Sophia and then to Zaid after. Go, Amin, go ahead.
Say like there's like a fundraising or something from we should go to this, kind of like eventually lead to them giving.
Yeah, very good, very very good, right? Like yo, I'm on Taco Bell money, bro. Like I'm on that McDonald's dollar menu money. I know I can't go to a fundraiser and give like $10,000, but guess what? I know a person who is really really good-hearted that can possibly be more resourceful than I am in this case. Okay, very good example, Sophia. Mm-hmm.
And you see that person isn't good, and you see they're lacking.
Mm-hmm.
You being a good friend, say you're lacking, get back on the game, right?
Oh, okay.
You like push them up because.
Okay. Yeah, I feel you. I feel you. So like, so you're trying to get somebody to this level, like, are you saying you're already kind of at that level already, but you're trying to help somebody kind of build themselves up?
Yeah.
Okay, very good, very very good. Okay, good example. All right, go ahead.
Or it's like,
No, you're fine. You're fine. We'll come back to you. Is it?
wait, I remember.
Oh, you go ahead. Go
So
ahead.
it's like when you give advice to someone that like, oh, you have to be nice to yourself if you like kind to yourself, like, but then you don't actually follow that for yourself.
Okay. So I'll actually break your point in half. You encouraging someone to be nice to themselves, be merciful on yourself. I can't do that for you. You understand? Like if a person is going through a really tough emotional and mental time in their life, and you've been the best friend you can possibly be to them, but that person's own like demons are actually themselves. They can't forgive themselves. They can't go easy on themselves. So you encourage that person, hey, listen, you need to take some time away and get better yourself. I can't do that for you, but you can do that for yourself. That's an example of this.
Yeah, it's like I can do the best like thing I can to help you.
Mm.
I feel like you can do that, but like I can't go inside your mind and do that.
Exactly. Very beautiful. Very, very good. Zaid, you had one.
Like, I still have friends in Arizona
Uh-huh.
I talk to, and sometimes when they tell me like drama or stuff that's happening in their life, I just give them like advice on what to do.
Right. So like you can't do anything about it, but like you can just at least share some thoughts on it.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. I'll give you another one. Y'all ready for this one? Check this out. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna go there. Okay. Y'all ever heard of like those like super Muslims that like kind of like ridicule people for like only like making dua and like not like going out there and like doing stuff themselves? I have a problem with that. What if that dua is what's needed? Why did you underestimate the power of that dua? Right? Like not everyone's gonna take up and like their resources and travel over to this and be like, and you know what? Okay, now I'm going to myself build a well for this child. Right? Like I'm sorry, I don't expect you to go to Dhaka, Bangladesh tomorrow, right? What's your name? Yeah. Jannah. I don't expect Jannah to pack her carry-on and her suitcase and go to Karachi, Pakistan to dig a well for this child. Like it might not be her position in life to do so. But you know what she can do? Man, she can spend five minutes tonight making dua for that kid. There was what's crazy? I'll tell you guys a story. So Ramadan 20, I believe it was 15 or 16. Ramadan 2015 or 16. We were praying Taraweeh at night and we were on like dua qunut. So like just kind of asking Allah for all the help that we can possibly muster. And I remember there was talk of like in the community of like, man, we need to be doing more than just making dua. We need to be like sending people over there to help and blah, 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 all that stuff. Like, like super overzealous people and stuff like that. After that dua qunut that night, we found out there was a ceasefire after like 82 days. There was a ceasefire. After 82 days, there was a ceasefire in Philistine. And I couldn't help but think to myself, what if all of the Muslims in the country or even in the state of Tennessee or even in like North America prayed Taraweeh tonight, did dua qunut, and because of that dua, Allah decided, you know what? This is dua answered right here. So my thing is, you will not always be in a position to actively do something, but don't underestimate any sort of good that you can do. Just try it. Don't underestimate deeds. It's not for us to do. Okay? And then the last thing, check this out. This is the last good point I got to make here. The last thing is, if you promote others towards good, you will reap a part of that reward because you're the foundation of their good. You know what we call this in Islam? We call this sadaqah jariyah. You planted a seed, and that seed grew into a tree. That tree bore fruits, and those fruits fed an entire village of people. Why? Because you planted the seed. There's a famous hadith. You want to hear this hadith, and we'll end with this today. And by the way, this is very relevant to all of you guys, by the way, because at one point, we all will go through this. It's called death. And the Prophet ﷺ, one time he said that when the son or daughter of Adam, they pass away, all of their deeds stop. It's a hard stop. No more continuation of deeds, right? So I don't care how much you prayed. I don't care how much you gave, zakah. I don't care what you, I don't care how many times you went to the masjid, whatever. That's all stopping. Except three things. And this is very important for us to know. So if you want to set up a real life insurance, do this. If you want to set up a real investment, do this. Those 3 Ds. Number 1 is any type of sadaqah jariyah, which is basically something that's a gift that keeps giving, right? So for example, you put $10 into a food, like a food garden, like a vegetable garden that ended up growing into a luscious farmland that just fed homeless people for years and years on end. That $10 is not $10 anymore, bro. It's probably $1 million a year. That's called investment. That's sadaqah jariyah right there. That's number 1. Number 2 is knowledge that benefits. Knowledge that benefits. So you A friend came to you and asked you if this is okay or not okay, and you said, hey, this doesn't sound like such a good idea. Maybe you shouldn't do it, right? And here, I'll actually give you some advice. Maybe you should do this instead. That friend, because of the way you spoke to them, because of the way you approached them, they decided to opt for the good, and they took that to heart, and they continue to do that good. And 20 years later, when that person is asked, hey, why did you start doing this thing? You know, one of my friends 20 years ago told me, I was at the fork of in the road at this point in my life, and this one friend told me about this thing that I should do, and ever since then I started implementing this good thing that they told me to do. You are the foundation of it. That's knowledge that benefits. Could you imagine if you taught someone how to read Quran? Yo, are you kidding me? That's why like Ustad Ubaidullah probably has like 1 billion, gardens in paradise right now. Inshallah, I mean, like think about it, dude. You're teaching people to read the words of Allah. Literally, you're sitting here. I mean, think about this, right? And again, I'm just a facilitator. You know who I actually accredit all of this to? To the people I learned from. I'm just a part of the chain. And now you guys are here sitting, right? Imagine like the reward. And guess what? All the reward goes back to like who? Eventually, the Prophet ﷺ. We're studying his hadith. Can you imagine the reward he's getting? On the day of judgment, Allah, and obviously the Prophet he's ma'asum, he's protected, he's getting into paradise, no questions asked. But can you imagine the Prophet, Allah goes to the Prophet on the day of judgment, he goes, yeah, Rasulullah, today is February 6th, 2022, a group of high schoolers from Dallas, Texas were reading one of your statements, and they learned from it, and they benefited from it. So the reward goes back to you. And the Prophet's like, Dallas, Texas? Who? Oh, Maha, Zaid, Ahmed, Serene, Iman, Safiya, Muhammad. They got together and they were just looking over your words. The reward goes back to you because you influenced their life in a good way. That's knowledge that benefits. And the last thing is this. This is crazy. The last one is this. It is children who make dua for you after you pass away. Children who make dua for you after you pass away. Man, like, imagine like your prodigy just making dua for you after you die, right? Like, and you can't even imagine that right now because y'all are like, bro, like I'm making dua for my parents, bro. Like imagine one day your kids will be making dua for you after you're gone. What type of legacy will you leave on this earth? Are you just a person who, and this is kind of mean, but I do say this, are you just a person who takes up oxygen? Honestly, think about it, right? Like what is your give, what's your giving back to this world? Is it that you just took in oxygen, you emitted carbon dioxide? Or did you leave something on this earth that it's irreplaceable? Because there's certain things that some people do in this earth that I'm like, man, we will remember them by this for the rest of their life. We will never forget what they did. Look at people, look at like Muhammad Ali, man. Look at Muhammad Ali. Look at people like Malcolm X. Look at people like people like Khadija radiallahu anha. Look at people like Aisha. I mean, look at even non-Muslims, man. Look at Rosa Parks, bro. Look at Harriet Tubman. Look at these people that like were just like, people remember them. Not a single person studies American history without knowing the name Harriet Tubman. No one studies a lick of American history without knowing the name Rosa Parks. Why? They were legendary. They left a mark on this earth that cannot be removed by any type of eraser. So what will be the mark that you leave on this earth? And don't think large, think local. What mark can I leave on my family? What mark can I leave on my neighborhood? What mark can I leave on my community, right? So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us people who are people who understand the beauty of doing good, and not only the beauty of doing good, but also the beauty of encouraging others to do good. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us a group of people who are hopeful in his reward, no matter how small the good is. We focus on the quality of the good and not the quantity of it. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik wa nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Jazakumullah khairan, everyone, for attending here in person, and obviously all the people online for attending. We actually have like 20-something people online attending, so this class is actually like really like 40-something people, alhamdulillah. So it's really awesome to be here every single Sunday with you guys. Make this a part of your Sunday routine, even if it's like one thing that you guys take away from this. I know that like y'all are fighting these battles every day called Snapchat and Instagram and TikTok and algorithms and whatnot, and like Attack of the Titans and all that crap. But like at least make one small benefit on Sunday being like, you know what, I learned like one small thing. And if it's that one small thing, I'm happy about that. You know what I'm saying? So inshallah, just keep on praying to Allah that you get better, that we all get better, and we hope for his reward. Jazakumullah khairan, guys. Thank you so much. And brother Ismail is out here. Man, I want to give a shout out actually online. People online won't actually I'm gonna do this right now. Ismail, I'm gonna embarrass you, bro. I don't care. Brother Ismail is back there, right here, everyone. He's waving to everybody, mashallah. He is one of our volunteers here at Roots. So all of you guys in person and also online, make sure that you pray and make dua for the people that are behind the scenes, not only on camera, because those people are even more important than us. We ask Allah to accept from them. Jazakumullah khairan, guys. Assalamu alaikum. All right, y'all. Everyone can grab some food, inshallah. And the session's over for today.